Hey, I'm Andy, and in this video, I'm going to turn this storage disaster into this high-density storage solution. So this is my plan. I have 15 of these 27-gallon storage crates that I need to store in my garage. I also need space for my 3D printer and filament storage. To organize everything, I'm building the frame out of 2x4s, and to make sure everything fits properly, before I start building, I've designed the frame in Fusion 360. This lets me generate detailed plans to follow during construction. I've also designed some 3D printable guides to help align the totes more easily when sliding them into the rack. This should make the system more efficient and keep everything neatly in place. But before I can get to the fun part, I've got to deal with the not so fun part, cleaning up and getting rid of the old storage unit. Out with the old, in with the hopefully better. Wish me luck. Now the fun part begins. First up, I need to build the base frame, the foundation that everything else will mount to. Then I'll bolt it to the floor because as much as I'd love to say, she'll be right, I'd rather not test it with a stack full of heavy containers. The next step is to mount the main support posts to the wall. I cut them to length and then used a router to cut a notch around the bottom so they fit properly around the baseboard. Then secured them to the studs on the wall. After that, I attached support blocks to each spot where I wanted a container support. I then repeated this process for the outer posts. Once all 4 posts were ready, I cut the horizontal supports to length and nailed them into position, nailing the outer posts at the same time. Next, I screwed the 3D printed guides and did a test fit with the containers to make sure the spacings were correct. Surprisingly, the guides worked perfectly. Without them, the bumps on the bottom edge of the containers would catch on the 2x4s, making it frustrating to slide them in and out. The guides helped to keep everything aligned and moving smoothly, making the whole system much easier to use. If you want to build something like this, I have the 3D files available for download in the video description. With that sorted, it's just a matter of repeating these steps 2 more times to finish this section of storage. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this build montage. Finally, it's time to build the best part, my 3D printing workbench. The first part of this is just repeating the previous steps, installing the foundation framing and the wall framing. In my original plans, I had space for an extra container above the workbench, but after installing the back supports, I realized it would take up too much space from my 3D printing workbench. So I've decided to skip the 15th container in favor of a larger workspace. However, I left space so I can always add it in the future if needed. In hindsight, I should have just shifted everything over about a foot or so to completely avoid the garage door and fit in all the containers in the first 3 rows. But at least this way, I've got room for another 3D printer, so I'm not complaining too much, just don't tell my girlfriend. This video is part of a larger series where I'm building my ultimate garage workshop. You might have seen my previous video where I cleaned up my network and installed a wall mount rack. Both of these projects have freed up more space, which means I can build an even larger workbench in the future, so stay tuned for that video. Lastly, I installed some LED lights above the new workbench. Then I designed and 3D printed some custom labels and label holders for each container so I can easily see what's inside. I've also included the files in the video description if you want to print your own. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you think, or if you've got any tips for improving the setup. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.